Coming to you, pre-recorded from YouTube. It's Down the Sideline. Hey, guys, last week was a pretty cool week. What do you think?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I have to agree.
Yeah.
What games did you guys like from last week?
I was actually really happy with the Texas-West Virginia game and then the Ohio State-Michigan State game.
I knew you were going to say that.
Of course I was going to say that because I picked Ohio State.
Guess what game I didn't watch? The Texas game.
Oh, nobody watched that game. I didn't even watch that game. I'm in Texas. They didn't even broadcast it.
That's because you couldn't watch it. All right, so the poll from last week was 2-2. Chef keeps tabs on all that because usually I'm out and away from computers and everything else on the weekends. I'm a busy man.
I'm lazy. I sleep in. I don't wake up till about 2 o'clock.
No, you don't, because I wake you up in the mornings for college game day.
Well, I turn it on and then I fall back asleep during the commercials.
Yeah, well, maybe I should stop watching it, and then I would win our picks for the week, because I'm currently like one game or one pick over 500. I'm 19-18, Opie is 22-15, and Chef is 25-12. I don't know how, because I feel that everything he knows about college football, he learned it from me.
I feel like Chef is a Duke of our group here.
Underestimated? Is that what you're saying?
Tries hard?
He tries hard, and he's hasn't played as tough a schedule as me and Mike have.
I played the exact same schedule y'all have. I've only been beat once. So I guess I am the Duke of this. I've only been beat once and I put the whooping everybody else every other week.
Easy, you're going to make Brandon mad. Sorry, Brandon. For the record, that was them talking about Duke and not me. I only talk about Duke when the microphones are off. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about last week's games, because I know that Chef, he said he's got something to mention about one of the games. I'll let you take it away.
Oh, the only game I really watched, because I was away from home for the night games, but the Notre Dame Arizona State game, my gosh, the announcer said they were going to live by the blitz, die by the blitz, and they lived by it the whole first half. Made Golson make mistakes. I mean, some of those turnovers not necessarily his fault. The linemen got their hands up in the air, made them like bad on some passes that were picked off, but they brought pressure all game long and made them pay the price for it. And I was thoroughly impressed with that Arizona State team.
Yeah, Golson didn't look very good. He didn't look very good at all. I watched some of that game, but I think I was flipping back and forth between a bunch of games because there was a lot of good games that were on, like at the same time.
Yeah, he almost pulled Jameis Winston and came back and won that game because he had a pretty good second half. Just he's not on Florida State, so he couldn't pull it out.
But I think just one too many interceptions and stuff that ASU really capitalized on. But I was wondering, where was the defense at for ASU the second half? Because it really wasn't there, and that kind of points on what you were talking about, I guess, living by the blitz.
And I picked Notre Dame to win that game, and I was wrong. And I'm not a big Notre Dame fan or anything, but it was kind of disappointing that Golson did have such a rough game. And like I said, it wasn't all his fault. I know there was an interception that turned into a pick six at the end of the game that, I don't know how his man dropped it, but he did, and that really swung the momentum around, lost all the momentum Notre Dame had. But that was just kind of disappointing how poorly his numbers ended up being for the night.
Yeah, but that pick was really late in the fourth quarter, back when the game was sort of close. But yeah, it bounced off his hands, off his chest, and off his hand. The guy picked it up and took off. But I don't think that turnover was a part of the reason. I think it was maybe the 4 before that.
Yeah, it was the fumble that turned into a score, and then the pick that turned into a score, then the pick that turned into a score.
I don't think it would have been close at the end, but I think ASU started playing a little bit conservative. But I've seen that from lots of teams that were close, and all of a sudden they were playing conservative. It brings us into LSU and Auburn, or LSU and Alabama, thanks. Is that all of a sudden, LSU, you're controlling the ball most of the third quarter, all of the fourth quarter, and then except for the last, 2 minutes, a minute and a half, and all of a sudden Blake Sims starts throwing the ball, and we just march down the field like LSU doesn't have a defense?
What got me about that game was you go into overtime and you throw 4 straight passes.
Yes.
He was 8 for 20 before that. He's obviously not throwing the ball well. Why give it to your quarterback in that situation when everybody knows you're a running team? That was stupid.
Well, he has been throwing the ball all year. I think I mentioned in a previous episode that every time he tried to throw the ball when they played Ole Miss, felt like it was a turnover. It was a pick. Every single one of them. But did they forget there was you get first downs. You don't have to throw it 4 times to the end zone. And they did. And I don't know why. But whatever. We said before, we're not the coach. Go ahead, Oak.
Even a bigger head scratcher for me is Blake Sims finished 20 for 45, I think is what it said, but there was a point in the fourth quarter where he had thrown 37 passes, and I was just like, because I didn't get to watch all the game, I was like, how is he throwing 37 passes whenever Alabama runs the ball? Because they clearly weren't passing it, so it seemed like the worst you could do is pick up 1 or 2 yards running the ball and maybe hope to get like a 5 or 6 yard carry and sustain a drive. But I thought both these teams threw the ball way too much for how their quarterbacks looked during the game.
But to play devil's advocate a little bit, Blake Sims looked really good that 2 minutes throwing the ball. And I don't know if it's because they were just, we don't have much time left. We're going to play back. We're going to give everything underneath and do that. But maybe they've been not trusting him enough just to turn it around to get, comments and stuff going. Because they really haven't. They haven't trusted him a whole lot. And Alabama's just been running the ball. Not that Blake Sims has really shown us that he's a great quarterback.
Well, also I think, too, is that in the first, I guess you could say, 55 minutes of the game, they don't want Blake Sims to cost them the game. And in the last 5 minutes, in this game, the last couple minutes, they're losing, so they don't have anything else left to lose. If he throws a pick six there, they were already going to lose if they didn't score anyway. So there's nothing. I mean, you're playing with your back against the wall. So I mean, it's like playing with house money almost, because if you hand the ball off and you don't get a first down, then you lose the game. If you throw an interception, you lose the game. So what difference does it make?
Right. We'll go ahead and move on to another SEC game, A&M and Auburn.
We didn't even talk about this one last week.
No, we didn't. I don't think anybody would have picked A&M to come out. But you know what I seen from that? I seen the A&M that was there at the beginning of the year. And wherever between point A and point B, wherever that team went, it was back.
So do you think Kenny Hill gets his job back?
No, I think that freshman guy, and I don't remember his name, but that's fine. But I think he played really good. But on the other hand, I seen that, I got my notes in front of me again. Auburn, did you guys watch that game?
I didn't get to watch
it. The fourth quarter.
You saw the fourth quarter. I watched pretty much all of that game. But Auburn wasn't going as fast as they normally were. It was almost like they were afraid to give the ball back to Texas A&M, and it's like, this is Auburn. We go fast. Go Smiles on. This is what we do. We keep it going. He does the little hand gesture thing. We keep go deal. But it was like they were scared to give the ball back to him. But that was more or less like in the first half. They kind of turned it on a little bit, but they still weren't really going as fast as they normally do.
And Auburn played. I mean, the 2 fumbles they had there at the end of the game by I don't know if Marshall got credit for both of them. One of them was I don't know whose fault that was, but I mean, I think
the one on that read option play.
Yeah, I mean, I know Marshall. I think ended up getting crediting with both of them.
I don't know. They showed the replay of it, and it was like he gave the ball off to to the running back there, and then he tried to pull it out after he already had it. I mean, that was just silly. And then the other one, they was the exchange between the center and the.
Yeah, he's walking up to the. I saw the highlight of that.
Yeah, as he's walking up to the line.
Yeah, that second one was on the center. I mean, that was a terrible snap. He didn't even look between his legs before he snapped it. I mean, I don't think I saw it all in the replay where he looked between his legs.
I don't guess I looked at it that close. I didn't see it, but he was walking up to the line.
Yeah, because he got the ball. He puts his hand on the ball, and then Marshall goes up there to the line. And I'm seriously, I don't remember seeing him once he put his hand on the ball, looking between his legs, like, even see if the quarterback was behind him.
I don't know if it might have been sometimes the teams run a silent count. I don't know if that's what it was. I mean, it couldn't have been the crowd. They were playing at home.
It could have been a silent count because he didn't look. I mean, if you're in shotgun, you got to give a sign.
Yeah, you got to do something. You see the centers turning their head side to side or doing whatever they're doing. But I tell you what, and now I'm going to talk about this a little bit because Auburn's playing Georgia this week. And if Auburn's D-line looks like it did against A&M and how I seen the O-line blowing up Auburn's D-line, they're going to have some problems with Georgia. Because they got Gurley coming back and Chubb's been playing really good. So with those 2 guys running the ball, if your defensive line is getting blown back off the ball like that, I'm sorry, Auburn, you're in for a long day, man. Especially they're playing at Georgia too.
Well, as long as Auburn doesn't pull Florida, and just pound it down Georgia's throat, unless they came back and made some changes there, because Artis Payne had 200-yard rushing against A&M and they still lost.
Yep, but there's a lot of penalties and stuff.
And Marshall was 15 for 21. I mean, I would say they needed to pass the ball more, but they ran the ball so well that, I mean, everything was working for Auburn offensively except for the turnovers.
Yep, there was some turnovers there at the end, but, I mean, there was some stuff where I feel they got a little bit lucky, like some blown coverage stuff. Like there was that 52-yard pass to Sammy Coates in double coverage with a defensive pass interference.
Yeah, there's always plays like that, though. I didn't see that play.
I
But
feel that there shouldn't be. Yeah, it was 52 yards downfield. It wasn't a run after catch. It was the ball was thrown like 50 yards. And guy had a hold of his arms and everything else, throwing it in the double coverage, and same way coach still come down with it. How do you have a pass interference? In college, if you're going to pass interference, just tackle the guy. It's only 15 yards.
right.
Moving on to Ohio and Michigan. I'll tell you what, Ohio's a lot better team than I thought they were. I liked not Mississippi. I liked Michigan State a lot in this game. They didn't look all that great. And I didn't, like I said, only caught bits and pieces of some of those games, so I'm flipping back and forth between that one and the Auburn one and Alabama and LSU that were all going on like at the same time. So I'm flipping back and forth, with all those. But I tell you what, now JT Barrett, he looks really good, and Ohio State looks a lot better than I thought they were. I think a lot better than a lot of people thought they were going to be. I guess unless you're a Buckeyes fan.
Yeah, like I said last week, Barrett proved himself in that Penn State game, and his team was going to rally around him, and they did. It absolutely did, and it shows. They're fighting for what all they got now.
And then if we're going to look at the Big 12 for a minute, you had Baylor and TCU. Both of those teams won big. I actually watched a little bit of that Baylor game, and they're down. I think they got down 14-3, and OU has the ball, and I was just watching. I was like, because I said last week that they had to get off to a fast start if Baylor wanted to win that game. And I was just like, this is going to be another one of those games they can't win. And then they threw that interception, and then, the final score is 48-14. So they didn't just play good offense. They played good defense, too, because OU scored 14 points the first quarter, not another point. The TCU, Kansas State, man, TCU just, they can't put it on them in that game also. And that's a huge win for them. And I think it helps out that both those teams won big this week for making the Big 12 have a shot at getting in the Final Four at the end of the year.
Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the new college football rankings that came out. How do you guys feel about those?
Well, from my opinion, I thought as far as the 4 teams in the Final Four, I thought they were I thought they did a good job with that. I thought it was a good idea that TCU jumped Alabama because LSU was a lower ranked team that Alabama beat, and TCU beat Kansas State, and they didn't just beat them; they beat them bad. So I thought that was nice that we saw them jump. I didn't think that Florida State should have dropped, not because I'm a Florida State fan, but I just think that Florida State hasn't lost this year. Regardless of what their competition is, they beat Clemson with the backup quarterback, they beat Louisville, and they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with Florida State dropping down. I'm still going to stay on my bandwagon that there's just not the competition in the ACC that there is in some of the other conferences. Well, all the other major conferences. They don't hardly play anybody. And like I said, I'm going to keep staying on that. And I don't have a problem if they lose. If they lose, I don't have a problem with that. But I don't have a problem with anybody losing. But I don't have a problem that Oregon jumped them, even though both teams won, and that Florida State's still undefeated. I wouldn't even have a problem if we get to the end of the year and, they're 9-0 or they're undefeated and a one-loss team is in that 4th slot and they're in the 5th slot. I think a lot of that stuff goes to show, that the selection committee's, looking at strength of schedule and who you're playing and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like it that, it looks like they're struggling with everybody they play, that I feel that other teams wouldn't have a problem with them. Like Clemson, how would Clemson do if they were in the Big 12 against Baylor? Or how would Clemson do if they went over to Utah and played Utah with that pass rush that they have? How would they do against Oregon? Would that be a quality win then? That Florida State's quality win is Clemson? How would Clemson do?
Well, but I do have a problem with that. Not because, like I said, I'm not a Florida State fan. I'm not a Jameis Winston fan either. I think he's a good quarterback. But they have beat Clemson. Clemson, I think, is ranked number 19 on the new playoff poll, and Notre Dame is ranked 18. Even if we don't like either one of those teams, the selection committee who's looking at this thinks that Clemson and Notre Dame are still top 25 teams. When as we look at like a team like Alabama, which would be a team that would knock them out, They beat LSU, and then we're struggling to find another. I mean, now A&M's ranked, but how good is A&M really? I mean, they're one of those teams that's up and down. So, I mean, we can't really put a lot of stock in them because if they lost 2 more games this year at A&M, would any of us here be surprised?
No, and I wouldn't. But I think if you look at the overall stuff, I mean, you think that okay, let me ask you this, Opie. Do you think Florida State would be undefeated if they were in the Big 12?
And it depends on where they've played at in the Big 12 because, I mean, like Baylor hasn't played their tough competition yet. At the end of the year, I think they would have one loss like TCU and Baylor does. I think that if you put TCU, Baylor, and Florida State playing each other, they all three would knock each other off some way or fashion. Even though Baylor was beat by West Virginia, then I'm still looking at it that those three would probably knock each other off. Just like I think if you put, for example, Florida State in the SEC East, I think they go undefeated in the SEC East. Now, if you put them in the SEC West, it's going to be a lot tougher because we're going to assume it's going to be a lot tougher because they have all those teams ranked, but we don't know that that the SEC West is that much stronger than, say, the Pac-12 or even the Big 12.
Yes, but we do because except for last year, the SEC won the majority of their bowl games for like the past 7 years. So, yeah, we kind of can.
So, recent history says that they're not better than the other teams because Florida State beat Auburn last year. And, I mean, even though it wasn't a pretty game, they still beat them. And, I mean, I'm just saying that we don't know that Florida State wouldn't beat them.
Well, but on the other hand, Florida, if they only have, we're saying they only have 2 quality wins or 2 teams that are possibly good, but then the Big 12's got Baylor, TCU, and they got Kansas State, and
that's it now. West Virginia was. It's kind of like West Virginia's kind of like the A&M. They was, and they're not really anymore.
Right, I agree. One thing I have to say about the way college football goes is that from one week to another, one team can vary so much in how they're looked at as an opponent. For example, when Baylor played West Virginia and got beat, that was a bad loss for Baylor. But now, whenever TCU played them, that's a big win for TCU. It's not like it's a quality loss for Baylor. That's not the way it's looked at. It's looked at that that's a quality win for TCU. And I think a lot of times that's how things look because when Florida State beat Clemson, they didn't look good, but they didn't have Winston playing either. So, I mean, if he plays...
But it wasn't because of some kind of injury. It was because he was acting like a fool.
I agree. It's done. Because he's a moron, he got suspended. But you can't argue that when he's on the field, that team is better. They're not better with him sitting on the sideline.
Well, they didn't look good in the first half of, like, most of all their games. I mean, they were down, 21-0 at halftime versus Louisville?
Well, NC State jumped all over them at the start of the game.
And NC State did too. How do we think NC State and Louisville do if they're in some of these other conferences?
No, I agree, but I think, though, and this is what happened with Alabama a few years ago, is once you start winning, and Florida State is the most recent national champion, every team you play wants to beat you. I think teams want to beat Florida State more than they want to beat, say, LSU now, because everybody wants to beat the national champion. Just like if last year Auburn would have won, then everybody would have been gunning extra hard to beat Auburn this year. So I think that your recent history dictates how hard teams play you. And last year, the big knock against Florida State was that they can't win a close game because they blew every team out in the regular season. And then they won a close game against Auburn. Now it's the opposite. They're not blowing anyone out, but they're winning all these close games. It's like if they blow them out, they get penalized. And if they win the close games, they get penalized. I mean, you can only beat the teams that's in front of you, like I've said before, and they've beat every team that's been in front of them for a year and a half now.
But anyways, I guess to wrap up the little rant, I like that the selection committee done that because then if they're not doing that, it's the same thing as that it was last year with you schedule whoever, schedule all these, like Kirk Herbstreit said, schedule all these 1AA teams. In that if you go undefeated, fine, you're in there. Way to go. Good job. I like that they put a one-loss team in front because they've played, in the selection committee's eyes, I guess, they played, better opponents.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me that much, them dropping to number 3. I would have a bigger problem if they dropped to number 5 than if they were than them dropping in the top 4.
So let's say theoretically we got Mississippi State, Oregon, and then TCU. All right. And something happens where Ohio State is number 6. They play for the conference championship, win it. Florida State plays for the conference championship against Duke, wins it. Who do you think would get that 4 spot?
Between Florida State and Ohio State?
Yeah. Because Ohio State's going to play a better ranked team. They got Nebraska or Wisconsin. And they're going to be a better team than Duke. Nothing against Duke. They're going to be a better team than Duke. So would you see a possibility of an undefeated team, Florida State, not even being in the top 4?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that if that's what they done, and if it gets close like this. Because I'd rather give Ohio State, that's played some teams. They played number 1 Michigan. They were underdogs in that. They beat them pretty handily. Than rather to give it to Florida State just because you're undefeated. Well, all these other teams could have played, a bunch of people they could have went undefeated.
Yeah, it's like,
too.
because why not Marshall? They're undefeated.
Right. That's the kind of thing, because Marshall doesn't play anybody.
Right.
Marshall would probably be lucky to be 3 games over 500 if they were in some of these other conferences. Not talking bad about Marshall, just saying.
But what if Duke wins out? Because if Duke wins out, there's going to be teams ahead of them losing. So let's just say that Duke wins out and they finish playing in the conference championship at number 10. Then is that not a quality win for Florida State if they beat them? Because they're still, even if you don't like Duke, Duke would still be whatever record in 1 and ranked number 10 according to the selection committee. No, and Michigan State and whoever Ohio State plays isn't going to be ranked that high.
No, because Duke lost to an unranked Miami team. That's not very good. That's who Florida State's playing today. Or not today, this week.
Right.
So, no, if Duke beats Florida State, both of them are out, there's not going to be an ACC team in the top 4.
Right, I agree with that. I'm fine with that, but I'm not.
But I don't think Duke should be in there, no.
So, is this pertaining to Brandon's comment where he said if Duke is able to win out and upset Florida State in the conference championship, do you think they deserve to be in the playoffs?
Right, yeah.
No.
Because there's plenty of teams that, like I told in the comment, I said there's plenty of teams that I think that are better than Duke that aren't going to get in there. Do I think Duke's going to beat LSU? No. Do I think Duke would beat Georgia or Arizona, Kansas State, Michigan State, UCLA, Ole Miss, Auburn, all those teams? Probably not.
And see, if Duke had lost to, say, Clemson instead, and I don't know if they even played Clemson this year, if they lost to Clemson instead of Miami, then I could say maybe make the argument that that's a quality loss. But the fact that they lost to Miami, who may not even finish with a winning record this year.
Yeah, if they went out and beat Florida State, I could see them in the top 10, maybe between 5 and 8. But I don't see them in the top 4.
No.
Just because, like we've said all along, their biggest win was against Georgia Tech. I mean, that's it. That's it. That same thing with Florida State. The biggest win was Notre Dame, who's fallen off the wagon.
All right, the poll for this week, it's going to be whether or not you agree with a 1-loss Oregon team being ranked ahead of undefeated Florida State. So go there and vote for that. All right, going into our first pick, we're going to talk about number 9, Auburn, at number 15, Georgia. Anybody want to take it away?
Sure, I can go first. I'm taking Georgia in this game, and I'm going to say that they rushed for over 350 yards in this game because Gurley's coming off of however many weeks he hasn't played, and he's going to be rested, and Chubbs has been tearing it up while he's been out. So I think Georgia's going to run all over him. Like, literally run. Now, I'm not saying they're going to blow him out.
Although I think this game's probably going to be pretty close, I don't think they're going to rush for like 300 and something yards. That's crazy. Do you think Georgia's going to win? You got Georgia in this one, Opie?
I got Georgia.
Chef?
I want to take Auburn. The way they ran the ball and distributed, it was an even game last week against Texas A&M. Their defense didn't step up. I can guarantee you Gus Malzahn's going to be all over them in practice this week. Absolutely. They probably had practice after that game last week. He was so mad at him. And I think they're going to come out refocused, ready to go. And I'd be surprised if Georgia scored 28 on them.
I tell you what, like I said earlier, if Texas A&M was running the ball on them like they were and getting blowing off the ball and blowing their D-line back, they're gonna have a rough time. But I can't pick Georgia. I'm gonna pick Auburn over it. So I'm gonna pick Auburn also, even though I think it's gonna be a close game. But I think probably probably high scoring, but close. Kind of like a shootout maybe, and one team wins by
Texas A&M. It's gonna be that kind of game. It's gonna repeat of last week. Is what you're saying?
Could be.
I just hope that Georgia. Not because I'm pulling for Georgia, but
You're pulling for Georgia.
You're pulling for Georgia. It's the one you pick.
I pick them, but I'm not. I don't care who wins the game.
You do. You pick Georgia.
I just don't want to see Georgia drop back the pass 40 times in this game and not hand the ball off to the 2 running backs.
Yeah, there would be no reason. You got a 3 stud running backs. Use them.
Next game, I got number 3 FSU at Miami. I put this game in here because I think this is probably going to be close just because every other Florida State game has been close. So what do you think, guys?
Florida State's only got a 1.5, so two. Well, I don't understand the line, but it's only a 1.5. That seems kind of weird for the number 3 team in the nation that's undefeated against a 6-3 Miami team.
I rest my case. I'm not doing down the sideline anymore. I told you Florida State shouldn't be in there. Thank you, our chef, for making my point. We're done here. That the number 3 team in the country is only a 1.5 favorite over an unranked team. That's a safety.
Because they're playing in Miami.
Really? Because number 4 TCU is playing Kansas, and they're a 60-point favorite.
28 points.
Or the over and under is 20. They're the 30-point favorite. Sorry, the monitor's like 5 feet from me. I can't see that far.
So then I can take it that both you guys are taking Miami?
I'm taking Florida State still.
I'm just saying that's the reason I brought that up.
I'm gonna take Florida State reluctantly. Like I've said all season long when I picked them, I don't want them to win. I am a Florida State hater. I don't think they deserve to be number 3. They've gotten lucky way too much in the past 2 years that they've went undefeated. The Super Bowl, whatever you want to call it, the national championship, lucky. Almost all their games this season, except for the few that they've won pretty handily, lucky, fortunate. That's all there is to it. And their luck's going to run out eventually. I don't want them to go undefeated on the season. I'll tell you what, if they play Duke, I want Duke to absolutely destroy them in the conference championship.
So I can tell everybody I told you so, and Brandon can say,
I mean, Brandon
woohoo!
Brandon can say whatever he wants. I want Duke to destroy Florida State. I don't want them to win. I am a Florida State hater. I'm not going to lie.
I don't want to. The reason why I don't want to see them lose, and I'm picking Florida State in this game, and I'll for sure take the points. Is I want to see them play one of the top 4 teams and see how they do. I mean, if they got to win 2 games instead of 1.
I don't want to see that. I would rather see a team that's already played a bunch of good teams play other teams that have already played a bunch of good teams that aren't number 25 Clemson and a Notre Dame team that barely won against whoever they played. Navy that barely won against Navy, and then gets beat by Arizona State. I don't want to see number Florida State get up in there and then play Auburn or whoever they play, or play Oregon, and Oregon drops 50 points on them. I don't want to see that. I want to see the college football. I want to see how the LSU Ole Miss game was, or how LSU and Bama was, where they're just fighting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's what I want to see. That's what championship games are. Championship games are you put up 30 points on somebody.
Aren't Texas A&M, Auburn, where it's down, like whoever doesn't score last wins.
But I'm gonna take Florida State because I don't think Miami's got enough firepower. But I think it's, like I said before, I think it's gonna be close because all their games have been close. Chef?
Yeah, I already said I'm taking Florida
Whoops,
State.
I missed it. My bad.
My bad. I got in my rant about I hate Florida State. I'm a hater.
Well, I don't hate any team. I want to see good competition. I'm a fan of college football. I want to see competition. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm not saying that necessarily. Oh, I said I was a hater, but it's kind of like the same thing with Alabama. I want them to lose. They've had too many games where they should have lost to Arkansas. They should have lost to LSU. They don't deserve to be number 5. Florida State doesn't deserve to be number 3. They should have lost those games. They got lucky. I don't want lucky teams to make it. I want good teams to make it.
Maybe the teams they played against got lucky against them, is why it was so close. Instead of it being that the better team always gets lucky and wins, maybe the worst teams get lucky and make it close, and then the better team just wins out in the end. No. Just like why Alabama has won. I don't like Alabama, and I hope they lose every game. But there's something to be said that when you play teams that come out to beat you, and you keep it close and take their best shot and find a way to win in the end, That's just the way the NFL goes. I mean, the Seahawks won a Super Bowl last year, playing that way all season long.
But it's not one of those lucky. They should come out and destroy Miami. It shouldn't be close. But they've had that all season long. It shouldn't be close in any of their games. But it is.
And it kind of shows because these are the Vegas odds. There's a reason. There's a reason why all this stuff's like that. I mean, look at all the other teams. Like even Mississippi State versus Alabama, number 1 versus number 5. It's Alabama by 9 points.
I mean, that's going to be a whole heck of a lot better game than a Florida State-Miami.
Yeah, but Florida State's only picked to win by 2 points. A safety? Well, the thing is, the point he's making is Florida State plays like shit at the first half of the game. They've done that all the time. And now the stuff that comes out that Jameis Winston comes up there and he's throwing the game at the first half at Louisville so he can make a little bit of money for the first half line. And then all of a sudden, here he is playing really awesome at the last 2 quarters. He's done that all the time. You guys heard about that, right? Yeah, he got in trouble for not trouble, but there was suspect that he's been talking to bookies or whatever the deal is. Because there's Vegas bet and there's gamblers everywhere, and they bet all kinds of stuff. You bet the first half line, you can bet the over and under, you can bet the second half line, but not the first half. Right. There's all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff you can bet. But there's a reason that Vegas is putting that at 2 points. Anyways. All right, next game, number 1, Mississippi State at number 5, Alabama. I'll go ahead and go first on this one. I'm going to pick Mississippi State. Not that I'm an Alabama hater or anything like that. I just think that Alabama's Mississippi State's a little more complete. Dax Prescott's a senior. He throws the ball well. He can run the ball. They got really good running backs. When I see Alabama, I see really good running backs, a really awesome receiver, probably the best in the country. But if you can't get the ball to him, what good is he? So I'm gonna take Mississippi State on this one.
I'm gonna take Mississippi State also. I'm not gonna take the points. I think it's gonna be closer than that. Because Mississippi State struggled since they've been number 1, and struggling is kind of putting it lightly. But they haven't put up the kind of games they had to start the season that got them to number 1. They've been kind of rough. Alabama's had way too many close games. And they're going to lose it. They're going to lose it. And if you only have one good receiver, Cooper, then Mississippi State knows that, and that's the only guy you throw to, you're going to have to look somewhere else this game, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that all game long.
Well, they have some other really good receivers, but just fair to point out that.
So since Mississippi State's been struggling the last few weeks, we should bump them out of top 4 is what we're saying then also, right?
Yeah, the Mississippi State, yeah, you're right. Mississippi State hasn't played anybody that's worth a crap. They're playing Duke and Syracuse and Clemson and Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech.
I think they did play like half those teams.
That's the whole ACC. Aren't there some awesome teams in there? And I'm sorry, but me and Opie talked prior to this episode, and he got me fired up. So you can thank that. You can thank him for that.
But I'm also going to take Mississippi State. I really don't think they're going to win because.
Why are you picking them?
Alabama always finds a way to win some crappy.
Then why are you picking Mississippi State if you don't think they're going to win?
I'm still taking Mississippi. Well, I'm taking the point.
All right, our last game we're going to talk about. We're going to give some love to Big Ten. Number 16 Nebraska at number 20 Wisconsin. Chef, I'll let you holler at that one.
Yeah, this one is for their division. Whoever wins this one's playing for it against more than likely Ohio State. And I'm actually going to go Nebraska. They got Abdullah, or I think that's his name.
That's him, Amir Abdullah.
He's been tearing it up. He did kind of get banged up a little bit, I think, last week before last, but he's gonna give it to Wisconsin. Wisconsin lost to Minnesota. I mean, come on. Nebraska's got this all day.
Yeah, they did rank Minnesota these season, right?
So Minnesota's ranked.
Yeah, they were 25.
Minnesota's been probably my surprise of the year. Absolutely, they've came in and given it to the Big Ten.
I think this game, in my head, this game's a coin flip. I'm probably gonna take Wisconsin just because they're at home. I think that's good enough. I will agree with you though that Abdullah's he's a great running back, Heisman candidate.
I'd be surprised if he didn't win it.
It's gonna be tough to beat Mariota though.
Yeah, it'd be between those two.
Not Jameis Winston.
No,
Mariota's a better quarterback than Winston is.
I'm also going to take Nebraska.
Why are you taking Nebraska?
I don't know. I haven't seen either one of these teams play this year, and I probably won't watch this game either.
I think that goes along with you and the rest of the country that it's either. People have been watching Ohio State play a little bit. They've been watching Michigan State play. Other than that, nobody's really been watching.
I guess when I first started watching college football back when I was 12 years old, I was a Nebraska fan. So I guess I'm pulling for Nebraska because of that. But I couldn't tell you.
But Nebraska, they were stout then. That's when like Michigan and stuff was stout.
Scott Frost. And then finally, I think we're going to put a team on upset alert. I guess I went out on the argument on this one. We're going to put up Ohio State and Minnesota.
I don't agree with that, but that's fine. We'll let Opie talk about it.
Yeah. I think I may actually pick Minnesota to win in this game.
All right. I think that concludes this edition of the Down the Sideline. I appreciate Chef and Ope hanging out with me once again.
It's been fun.
It was real fun.
I appreciate arguing with Opie. I'm going to put him in a headlock as soon as we get out of this thing. But thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support. And we'll see you next time.
Deuces.
Later, guys.